know me, for folks that don't know me, my name is Matt Schuman. I'm the relatively new town engineer. I took over for Beth Rudolph in June, who's Beth's now the town manager. So I'm still getting acclimated to the town and up to speed on things, but I have some familiarity with the project and have met with folks to discuss it further. Everyone is probably familiar with the project in some regards at this point. This is traffic calming, design of traffic calming improvements in two neighborhoods that abut the Lynch School. We have two meetings scheduled tonight. This meeting is going to focus on the Horn Pond Brook side, and then we have another meeting at 7:30 to discuss the Pond Street side. So the objective of the traffic calming is really to slow vehicles down within the neighborhood and provide a neighborhood benefit for traffic calming, but also to improve connectivity and walking and biking opportunities for particularly children in the neighborhood, to encourage them to be able to walk and bike to school. In the spring town meeting, the town allocated $400,000 for tool design to continue to develop engineering, design, and construction plans for the overall projects. This meeting is going to serve to follow up to last October's meeting, which I know has been a while. It's been about, pretty much a year. But since that time, Erica and her team have been able to do some updates. They've done some field survey, and they've started to refine the concepts and incorporate some of the feedback that we received at that October meeting. It's important to just note, as Erica begins her presentation, that they haven't begun final design. They're still taking those concepts, and I would say that they're going to come to you with more refined concepts, refined in terms of some of the feedback we received before, but also refined in terms of seeing some of the field conditions and seeing, reality check, are these things going to work? Do we need to tweak things? After this meeting, the team will come back and take the additional feedback and start digging in to come up with a final design. We anticipate having an update meeting in the spring and then going to town meeting to get allocation for construction funding. The budget that we're anticipating is going to be around $2.6 million based on kind of the previous discussions of the overall budget for the project. And the intent would be to have these improvements constructed during or prior to the opening of the new Lynch School. So as Erica mentioned just before I passed it over, the meeting is being recorded. She'll have a link to the website at the end of the presentation, where if you want to watch this presentation or watch the presentation for the Pond Street side, you can do that. There'll also be a comment form. You'll be free to ask questions at tonight's meeting, but if you think of something after the fact, we would appreciate using the comment form as the best way to communicate with us. And I think with that, I'll pass it off to Erica and her team. Erica's the project manager with tool design for this. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Matt. Let me just share my screen really quickly. Can everyone see kind of that first slide, title slide? Thank you. Great. I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to cover a few of these slides fairly quickly because I think, Matt and I are on the same page on a lot of these things. So do a quick kind of intro and then jump into the concept updates. I'm hoping tonight, for those of you that were able to attend in October of 2022, that there's not a lot of surprises here. It's hopefully just a reminder that these are happening, and then a few modifications based on the things that we heard at the meeting last year. So I think everyone in here is already familiar with this, but really quick, I just want to mention that we are not on the kind of the team that is building the school itself, and anything on site is a different team. So while we can take those comments, that's not kind of what we're going to focus in on today. This is all the offsite stuff. And a reminder, I think Matt just kind of covered this, that like safety and connectivity for students walk, especially on foot, or getting dropped off and then walking part of the way to school, is really what the priority is on this project. The timeline, there's a lot on here, but I also thought it was helpful to see that there are a lot of steps that go into this, and this isn't like, a quick thing. We are really trying to do all of our due diligence on this project. The red is where those neighborhood outreach touch points are happening with this group and with the Pond Street group. I won't restate all of it, but I will say, we were here last October kind of presenting our findings from the traffic study. We then submitted it based on, refining it a bit with some feedback from you all. Then town meeting happened with those, the approvals to keep going forward on this project with the budget. We initiated the engineering design over the summer, which included getting land survey, topographic survey, and pulling together a proposal to do the actual design. We're back here today after doing some truth checking, doing some field work, additional field work, and looking at the land survey. So we're back here today to hear from you all. Hopefully we've addressed some of the comments that we heard last time, but we'd like to hear from you all again tonight. And then we're going to move into the engineering design, actually putting pen to paper on getting some kind of the black and white plans associated with the project over the winter. Then we're going to come back early next year and share kind of where we're headed, and then button up the design and give an updated cost estimate to the town before town meeting of a spring town meeting, and then hopeful for construction prior to when the Lynch School opens in the fall. So this should be a slide you might recognize from the few meetings that I've done over the last year on this project. But I came to you all in October of 2022 with approximately 12 project concepts, I would say, and heard feedback from you all and made some modifications based on what we heard. I mentioned the land survey. This is just an image to show you what it looks like and just remind me to say this, that we are, the purpose of what we're kind of doing over the summer was to truth test our ideas. We did a big site walk with DPW, town engineering staff, town planner, to check all of these things and really get a closer look. I think Matt had said, we were at the 30,000 foot scale. Now we're getting into like the 3,000 foot scale. And hopefully by the time we see you in the spring, we're more like the, 3 foot scale. So we still have some work to do here. So I'm going to jump through these concepts. I know you all are here for the Horn Pond Brook side of the project. So I'm going to be a little quicker on the Pond Street side. Happy to answer questions on those as well. And then take a little more time on the concepts on the Horn Pond Brook side of this thing. So starting on Pond Street at Chesterford Road and Norfolk Road, not a lot of changes have happened here from the conversations that we had. I know there were comments about vehicle speeds turning on and off of Pond Street and the length of the crosswalks on the side streets. So we're looking to do curb extensions here. I will say, I know that we've gotten some feedback on Wildwood at Woodside being a little tight. We're going to look at that and make sure that we're a little less kind of aggressive with our curb extensions on these and ensure that everyone's kind of comfortable with where we land before we go out and build this thing. We also looked at opportunities to increase visibility and safety with the crossing at the trail here. Similar story at Woodside Road and at the driveway entrance, Brentwood Road to the school. Woodside Road is particularly long crosswalk with a good amount of vehicular turning over it. So this will really improve the distance that students have to cross this street. So the conflict zone will be a lot shorter and reducing speeds at these locations as well. We're going to be looking for opportunities to landscape and not just kind of pave everything. Wherever we can fit in green infrastructure, that will happen as well. I threw in a couple of the images from the website, the renderings for these. So this is an example of what Pond at Woodside would kind of look like. You can kind of see where the curb extension is happening versus where the sidewalk is today on both sides. It's a notable improvement for pedestrian crossing here. I think it's helpful to see it visually and not just on the plan view as well. Moving to the other side of the school, this is Royal Street at Horn Pond Brook Road. We're looking at a raised intersection here. So the idea here, and I can show you an image of it as well. We did the rendering for this too. The idea here is to have the intersection all raise up and be at sidewalk level, which kind of prioritizes pedestrians and doesn't require them to use ramps. It really slows vehicular traffic down because it's a vertical element. We're also looking at the potential to create an all-way stop control here. I actually would hope to hear feedback if people have opinions about that this evening. It's not warranted from a vehicular standpoint, but it is warranted from a pedestrian volume standpoint. We do have crossing guard there as well that kind of stands in the middle and holds a stop sign for all directions. So I think that this design and possibly that control would help that person with their job of controlling vehicular traffic at that flow point. Another piece of this that the site engineers are going to be doing is improving is putting a future bridge for pedestrians only on the north side of the intersection. And this is important because the school is on the north side of this intersection where it is today on the south side, and the sidewalk is on the south side of this bridge. So you're kind of creating mixing zones. The idea here is that pedestrians would be able to just cross without having to kind of mix between all the drop-off zone for parents. This is a rendering of what that kind of looks like because that's an interesting one to visualize. Moving down Royal Street to Sylvester Avenue. This is one that we actually did a little bit of a change to, so I'm be interested to hear what people think about this. We had 2 raised crosswalks where the crosswalks are painted here today. Currently, there's no painted crosswalks, I believe, or sorry, there's no painted crosswalk across Royal, and there is on Sylvester, but without proper ramps. So we're looking to improve the ramps there. And we had these raised. We think there's some constructability challenges with raising these. There's some driveway aprons, utility poles. There's some catch basins, so some drainage challenges there. So what we're thinking now is putting in a speed hump kind of in proximate to the crosswalk rather than having the crosswalk itself raised. Moving south on Sylvester Ave towards Middlesex Street, we're looking to do a curb extension at Horn Pond Brook Road at the intersection with Sylvester Avenue, and raising the crosswalk as well. This will again shorten the crossing, prioritize pedestrians, and allows for slower vehicle turns across this crosswalk. Again, you want to do traffic calming in a series, so we've got more speed humps kind of all the way down Middlesex Street. Coming into Middlesex at Canal Street, we're looking to improve the sidewalk conditions. There's actually a missing segment of sidewalk across that kind of, there's like a dirt driveway right here that kind of leads to the trails in the cemetery. So looking to improve that with a full sidewalk for connectivity purposes. Previously, we had raised crosswalks across both of these. We think, again, for the same reasons, there's going to be some challenges with constructing this in this direction. The curb reveal is fairly low, so to raise the crosswalk, you'd essentially have to like dig down Middlesex Street and or raise up the curb reveal. So we're thinking that this will be a less impactful in terms of construction and a more cost-effective way to calm traffic is the speed humps with the simple crosswalk here, and then looking to potentially raise the one across Canal Street. Moving down Middlesex Street, we reduced the scale of this this curb extension, I guess you would call it, realignment, quite a bit. It was maybe double the size when we brought it last time. We're looking to reduce it. This one's important because the sidewalk currently brings you down to the trail and does not allow you to walk along Middlesex Street. So there's no crosswalk here today. I know it's a fairly low volume thing, but this is hundreds of feet long at this point. So we're looking to reduce the length of that crosswalk, mark it, and provide a sidewalk connection there. This also helps with the comment that we received about people drivers moving south on Middlesex Street, not knowing which one is the through, and kind of floating kind of fast down the dead end street there. Moving down Middlesex Street, we will continue the speed hump treatment. We're going to look more closely at exactly where we want to put these, and we'll be happy to bring that in the spring so everyone knows exactly where we're thinking they might go, and want to hear comments from people about if they have any concerns about those and where they might go. And then continuing the sidewalk, it actually ends on Middlesex Street right around house number 18 on the, I guess, the page side bottom, I would say. So continuing the sidewalk through, and then this will be fairly low impact, be able to put a sidewalk along kind of this park that's on the corner there. We're also looking to improve this, provide a sidewalk on that little gap that's this end here as well across Fairfield. And then moving down, providing some ramps on Lake Street at Middlesex, and the same is true at Linden Street at Lake Street. think I've covered everything on this sheet. Oh, I just want to say, I guess I don't have a graphic for it. I apologize, but we are also looking at speed humps on Canal Street. So we don't have those placed yet, but I'd love to hear from folks if they have opinions about, you know, where or just the idea of having speed humps along Canal Street, because I know there's an issue with vehicles kind of traveling quickly down the hill and then taking the left on Middlesex and continuing down Lake Street. That's all the concepts for tonight. I'll just remind folks what Matt said already. You know, there's an online form available for your feedback as well. If you think of something later, or if you know of a neighbor that couldn't make it tonight that wants to share their comments, there's plenty of time to do so. The website link is there. And the next steps, as we said, is the engineering over the winter, and then you know, coming back to you all in the spring with some updates on our design a little more finalized. Thank you. We'll open up to questions. I guess, Matt, do you want to facilitate questions, or would you like me to do that?
I think it might be easier if your team facilitates the questions.
Sharing for now. So the way we have it set up, you won't be able to unmute yourself. So if you can, you should be able to raise your hand at the bottom under reactions. So if you can go ahead and raise your hand if you would like to speak. You're also welcome to just put notes in the chat. We will download the chat and save that as well as official comment. So I'll go ahead and unmute people as they raise their hands in order. All right, okay. My first one I have to unmute, so let's see if I know how to do this. Should be able to. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. This is Ed Valeriano at 6 Royal. I don't know if you're able to put the slides back up because it's kind of helpful. But just looking at the intersection where Canal comes into Middlesex, you know, at the bottom of the hill. My question is, why not put stop signs instead of the raised thing? I don't know if that was considered and ruled out for some reason on the Middlesex just to make traffic stop.
So I know we are proposing to install a stop sign across Canal Street. You're asking about a stop sign on Middlesex as well?
Yeah, there is no stop sign presently on Middlesex. And so I see like the two kind of speed humps, the slow traffic, but why not just stop traffic as they approach that intersection?
So we actually,
you know, on Middlesex.
Yeah. Thank you. We actually did look at that, and it's not technically warranted in terms of volumes, and it's always a slippery slope. So technically, like, you really would have to use. There is a clause that you're allowed to use engineering judgment. But my opinion on that is that this is not a great location for a warrant, or excuse me, for a stop sign. When it's not warranted, generally people don't comply, and that's always the challenge there. So there, yeah, you really like truly the industry doesn't allow for stop signs wherever you want to put them. It's really like a regulatory mechanism. So I think it's the best practice to slow people down rather than put up some stop signs.
Okay. Yeah. If it was considered that's all I wanted to. I just wanted to make sure.
I just wanted to chime in because this happened. You know, this comes up a lot of times, not just this project, but you know, it's really frowned upon to use stop signs for a traffic calming purpose. So we are trying to achieve traffic calming first and foremost, and stop signs are not supposed to be used, you know, primarily for traffic calming. They are supposed to meet some warrants that are kind of formal guidelines for installing them. But it's a good question.
Okay. My other question, I have another question on the next slide. So it's like where Middlesex is meeting Lake. So right when you get onto Middlesex, and this happens all the time when school's in session, and will only get worse, you know, as the school is growing. Once someone parks, so there's no parking on the side that the house is on. Like there's a sign already there that says, you know, no parking on this side around there. But there's not one on the park side of the street. And I was hoping that that could be considered to put no parking on that, because what happens is you get the mad rush of the morning. First of all, you got people going to work, right? And then I've got people dropping off kids coming out onto Middlesex. And so that puts like heavy pressure. And then once I get one car, and usually it's like a landscaping car, you know, with the truck with their stuff, once they park on the park side of things, it makes for like massive like backups there. And what I think also like unsafe, because I'm trying to get around the landscaping guy or whoever they're parked on that side, right? And so I'm on a one, basically only one vehicle can fit through, right? Once that happens. So I don't know if that can be thought about.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
so
it actually came up at the last meeting, and we have the survey now, so we're able to grab the width there. I believe it's 23 feet wide, so it's not wide enough to have that parking along the park and two travel lanes. And given the proximity to Lake Street, which is a fairly well-used corridor, we're going to be recommending parking restrictions kind of in that area. I don't have the final
okay, yeah.
exactly where it will be, but that is going to be something that we consider for sure.
Yeah, anywhere else on Middlesex, I mean, because I drive it all the time, you know, it's okay, you know, and it actually slows cars down to have to weave through. But it's just that where it meets Lake, where because then people are trying to turn in, turn out, and gets a little tricky when you're there. And then just one final question from my side, and I live on Royal, and so and I said this at the last meeting, I'm going to say it again. But I don't know where it ended up, kind of like thinking about Royal as a one-way to the school, and then Horn Pond as a one-way out, and same thing with the other street. Because right now they're both two ways, and so you get a little nuttiness happening, you know, at pick up and drop off times at the school.
Yes, I recall that comment. I know that this was something that was studied a few years ago. I don't know if Beth joined. I know she was around when this was studied. We heard that there were visceral reactions to that from some. It sounds like you were supportive of it, but a lot of potentially neighbors were not. I would say, from my perspective, one-way circulation is not usually what I recommend for a couple of reasons, including you're not going to change the width of the roads. You're just making it one way. Like you just kind of mentioned the traffic calming that comes with when the road's narrower, but if it's one way, you're going to lose that. So I think speeds
Okay.
and you don't want that.
No.
Vehicle miles traveled will increase, which means that when you have one-way circulation, everyone's going to drive past your house in order to get back to their driveway. Versus today, they might not have to. So that's typically why I don't recommend one way if we can avoid it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I just, once again, I'm just asking to see if was it thought about, and you know, if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. I'm trying to help the situation, because there's a hard, I mean, it just there's definitely a mega peak that happens during a drop off and pickup times.
Thank you.
Thanks. That was it. Thank you.
It looks like Elizabeth Mooney is next.
Yes, hi, thank you. Just first, I want to say thank you. It's really exciting to see all these traffic calming measures. So I really appreciate it. One question I had was whether, you know, with the Lake Street Bridge closure, which we've had a ton more traffic coming down the street, and I would say that we've had a ton of, frankly, heavier trucks coming down the street, and it is a small street for heavier trucks to come flying down Canal and make the left up.
People lose Elizabeth. Hello? Yeah. Elizabeth, we can't hear you, but I'm going to leave you off mute in case you can rejoin. I'm going to switch to Kay, and then hopefully we get you back.
Yes, I mean, I can further Elizabeth's comments, but I will let her have her say. But I think essentially what I've noticed during the Bridge Street closure is we have a lot of traffic, heavy trucks, super fast. The most concerning is that people pull down Middlesex and then they take a turn. They think they're turning on Canal, but they're really turning on the Horn Brook Pond to the bike path. And then they will back up directly into the road. And I see this every morning. Every morning I see cars backing up into the road, into oncoming traffic to go straight down Middlesex and then take a ride on Canal. I think this is furthered by ways where folks think they're, taking a shortcut by avoiding Main Street, but it's really, really dangerous. And I'm afraid that we're waiting until someone's going to get hurt. And I would love to alleviate that challenge. Another thing that I'm seeing is the cars are speeding down. On a daily basis, I'm putting my hands down, telling people to slow down. But Middlesex, it's like a raceway because there aren't many stop signs, but there are no stop signs, in fact, between, the Palmer or maybe it's Bacon, but the crosswalk at the pond and the crosswalk at Canal, there are no stop signs and it's a thoroughway and people speed down that, especially with Main Street closed. I'm really concerned about the speeding now that people have learned that behavior with the bridge closed, and the speed bumps are not sufficient in my opinion. They need to be significantly increased in order to slow cars down. Cars just bulldoze over them, and we need to find a better solution to slow people down on our road because there are so many children that are commuting not only to school but to after school activities, to the park, all around, and it's unsustainable right now, and I'm very concerned that it's not going to be escalated until someone gets hurt. And I'll let Elizabeth say her piece, but that's just 2 cents from my end.
Thank you. Elizabeth, are you there?
I'm sorry,
Eric,
can you hear me now?
Go ahead, Matt, and then Elizabeth. We did hear you.
Okay, Eric, I just wanted to, you can maybe discuss the design of the permanent features for the speed humps, which are certainly a lot different than what we've put down. But I just wanted to speak to, some of the traffic impacts during the Lake Street Bridge closure. Fortunately, it has gone on a little bit longer than we all had hoped, but we do expect the bridge to be open next month, which should definitely alleviate things. We did, as an effort, try to put down some temporary speed humps in the neighborhood, and perhaps they haven't worked as well as they could have. Those are definitely not as certainly not as permanent and not as impactful as what the permanent structures we would be putting down as part of this project, which Erica can discuss. And I'm happy to look at the Middlesex and Horn Pond Brook Road intersection right now to see if there's some additional signage we could put up so that folks don't try and make that left accidentally, thinking that that's a through street. Thanks.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry that I cut out. I think that was Kay speaking, but I know that the Lake Street Bridge is temporary, but I am worried that people have sort of learned behaviors now that our street is a cut through and that they can race down it and that heavy trucks can come down it. And so I think to the extent as you're sort of finalizing plans, if you could just keep an eye on behaviors and whether people stop using Middlesex after the Lake Street Bridge opens or if they continue to use it. I almost was thinking about particularly a ban on some of the heavier trucks that we're getting down our street that are using Middlesex as a cut through. I think that might be something useful because it's certainly scary to watch your kid go out to get on the school bus and like a huge truck flies down the street at the same time.
Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
Everyone, Brian Clark on Pond Brook Road. Wanted to ask a question about the raised area you're putting in on Pond Brook Road in Royal. Right now, there are 2 stop signs on the Royal and on the bridge coming from the school, but not 2 on the other 2. And I believe you're putting them in as a 4-way stop, which is, I think, fantastic. The stop signs work. There's good compliance during school hours when the crossing guards are there. it tends to be spottier compliance when the crossing guards aren't there. So if you've got fully raised up to the sidewalk level table at that intersection, does that create a risk of people going up onto the sidewalk when they're barreling through? Are you going to put some sort of barriers on corners? I mean, how do we mitigate that?
It's a great question, and you're making me realize that the rendering doesn't have that. But yeah, so we haven't looked at what exactly the treatments would be, but typically they'll be, we put in some kind of metal bollards on the edge line to ensure that that's not an issue on the corners.
That's great. And I'm being incredibly selfish because that's my corner.
That's what I'm looking for tonight. I want to hear from people. I'm glad we're reaching a butters. That's important. So thank you. I think Brooke is next.
Hi. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So I live at Four Horn Pond Brook, which is the other side of the street where it looks like that island kind of thing is getting created. So I'm just wondering, it's kind of difficult already to pull out of there. You kind of have to use the full stretch to even see past. It's like really difficult. It's actually super dangerous. I'm just wondering, how wide is that turn gonna be right in front of where that green area is going to be? So it's right on the corner of Middlesex Street and Horn Pond Brook, where the bike path
Okay,
is.
this one.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. No, I struggle with, like, I think Middlesex and Sylvester changes at Canal.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
weird. Next,
And
oddly.
Horn Pond Brook continues again. Yeah. So I'm sorry, talking about this one and your difficulty taking a turn out of Horn Pond Brook Road.
Yeah, it's hard to see right there because I don't know if you can see to our right, but there's that little corner of yard that the neighbors own. But when you pull out of there to take a left turn onto Middlesex Street heading towards, I think that's Lake Street,
Yeah.
it's super hard to pull out of there. You kind of need like use the whole area just to see past those bushes. So I'm just wondering how much space you're gonna give us to do that.
So you're asking about kind of the width that we're remaining in this area here.
Yeah, exactly.
Measurement in front of me, and maybe I can phone a friend, Dan, if you can measure that for me while we're talking and give me an answer on that. I know that we pulled this back quite a bit, so I appreciate your comment about that. I don't think we're doing anything really to change the sight line according to the kind of this corner and like what you can see here. I'm hoping that Middlesex slowing down, that'll improve.
Okay.
This is pretty wide still. And yeah, we can pull it up anytime soon.
Looks better than the original rendering for sure. It was really tight there for a second.
Yeah, I mean. But I believe we kind of cut this in half. Like this was pulled way over. So I'm happy to hear that you're thinking this is better, but I'll keep your sightline comment in mind when we're actually designing it.
Okay, and then I just actually have one more question.
Sure.
So for the speed bumps or the speed humps on Middlesex Street and Canal Street, how many are you planning on doing? Because I know it's already, I feel like people do race down, but there's also a bunch of cars always on the street. Like someone said earlier, you kind of have to weave in and out. So I guess I'm just wondering, how many speed humps are you guys planning on putting in?
I think we have 4 right now, which is like, fairly, it's kind of a balancing act between the length you want to have them, because like you want to not allow too much opportunity for people to like speed up between them.
Yep.
I think, I guess I will say, as I want to make sure people understand that like this will have an impact to like the parking that's right there, because you can't like park on the speed hump.
Yeah.
I have seen parked cars every time I've gone to Middlesex, but it's not like full. So it would affect, effectively like 4 speed humps would affect 8 parking spaces essentially.
Are
So
they the plastic ones or like they have in downtown Winchester, or are they like the paved ones?
they would be like what you have on Woodside Road right now, the 2 that recently went in.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay. I live at 85 Canal Street, right where it becomes a raceway after you take the corner. A lot of my concerns mirror what Elizabeth and Kay said. Obviously, everyone's taking Middlesex to Canal and then booking it up Canal and avoiding Main Street and the Lake Street bridge closure. And in terms of heavy trucks, I think that's going to continue for a while, especially with new Lynch construction. People are going to be coming through the neighborhood. But people speed so quickly past my house that I've started parking my car on the street just in order to try to slow people down because my fist isn't working. So I'm in favor of speed bumps on Canal, and I would love to even help install them if that's the case.
Thank you for volunteering. Thank you. Go ahead, Brian. Should be able to unmute Brian.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thanks. Yeah, sorry if this was covered in the first few minutes of the call I missed. I would so I live on Fairfield Place, right at the corner of Middlesex. I would also echo the comments that whatever temporary speed humps are on Middlesex right now have zero impact on slowing speeds. And so you mentioned that you're proposing permanent speed bumps similar to what's on Woodside.
Yeah.
So I'm not familiar with those. So are you talking about permanent, like paved speed bump?
Okay, they'll be paved. Yeah, they're paved and they're a little less dramatic than kind of the traditional speed bump that you would see like in a grocery store parking lot. They're humps. So like they're a little less dramatic, a little more gentle. So like your both tires will be on it at the same time.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And then second question, what's the timeline for the proposed, like when would construction start and when would construction end on these proposed enhancements?
So that's what the construction here on the timeline is. That's not exact, but right now we're looking at going to town meeting for the next round of kind of vote and approval in the spring, and then moving into construction of these improvements somewhere in the window of the summer of 24 to the summer of 25. Obviously, that wouldn't want to take place over the winter. So it might be a series of them during one summer and finishing them up on the other. And then the intention is to have it all open before the new Lynch opens up.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric, I'm not sure if you can see the chat, but Dan has the measurement. It's about 75 feet of what's proposed.
75 feet is the space between what would be remaining, I guess, the remaining space.
Yeah, so it's like the crosswalk length.
So that's I think Brooke asked that question. That's a pretty general. Oh, I just muted. That's a pretty generous throat of space for that intersection to navigate it. Looks like Amy has. Oh, Amy's going to done. Go ahead, Kay.
So I've already said my piece about Middlesex and the speeders, but I'm particularly concerned about that intersection that we've been talking about, the Hornbrook Pond Road or something like that, where down Middlesex, when you're getting to Sylvester, you can turn into the bike path. I'm curious why the intersection was expanded. You said 75 feet. That seems very wide. So I'm a runner and my kids frequently use that path. I see high schoolers walking on it. I see walkers, bikers every day, 24/7. You have people on that path. I'm curious why we'd want to widen that. It seems very dangerous. That's probably the crux of what I would consider the most dangerous point of this entire plan. I see people, again, I'll repeat myself, but I see people going in, thinking it's Canal, backing out directly into Middlesex Street, into oncoming traffic, and then going straight and then turning right on Canal. And the wider we make it, the more opportunity people have to miss it. Would almost advise a huge sign that says dead end, not canal, something like that, where people know, because they're now using Waze and they think, just like somebody who doesn't know the neighborhood, they think that must be canal, and they turn to right and it's not canal. And then blindly, they back up into the road where all those people and cars are walking. And I'm very concerned about that being very wide. So I'm curious why the decision was made to make that wider than the previous proposal.
Thanks. Yeah, and I agree with the idea of additional kind of wayfinding to maybe a no outlet sign or a dead end sign or whatever the latest and greatest of that is. I think that would be really helpful in ensuring that street signage is clear. Honestly, a big part of that change was it was a huge project, and that dead end street doesn't see a lot of volume. And we felt that, essentially like the proposal we had before, I want to say it was like $300,000 to build, which is, a good percentage of the project budget to allow for something that didn't feel as critical as some of the other pieces. So at the end of the day, we had to value engineer it a little bit. We did get the opposite comment of what you're saying from others, saying that that wasn't where people felt like the money should be spent. We've heard both sides of it. I'm hopeful that this is kind of meeting somewhere in the middle, but we've been able to trim this back to about half the scale of what it was. And I think it will still have a lot of benefit. I'm a little weary of who host is. I'm gonna unmute, but
this meeting sucks.
thank you for your comment. All right, I think we've addressed all the raised hands, unless anyone wants to raise their hand now that is a credible person, a neighbor. Aside from that, I'll put back up on the screen the process for if you have any comments that come up in your mind after being here this evening. And maybe I'll pass it back to Matt. Thank you.
Thanks, Erica. I don't really have anything else to add, but I will encourage folks if they have things they come up with after the fact to go to the website on the town's webpage, and we can again look at this presentation. The slides will be posted, and there'll be a comment form if you want to provide additional comments or questions. And we look forward to continuing the design and being back next spring with more information. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.